All the other girls have started their period already. Why haven't I? Am I broken? I don't want to tell anyone. It's too embarrassing. Maybe I'm just too skinny. This is all my fault. Girl, let's talk periods. If you haven't had your first period by age 15, or maybe you're supporting someone in that situation, this video is for you. I know this topic can feel a little bit intimidating because you've probably heard that not having regular periods can lead to reduced bone density, which means you're at greater risk of fractures and osteoporosis, which is really scary to think about. But my main aim with this video is to give you a good understanding of what primary amenorrhea is, the main causes including the female athlete triad, how doctors diagnose it, and most importantly, practical steps you can take right now backed by the medical guidelines and scientific studies. Just as a little disclaimer, I am not a healthcare professional, I'm a personal trainer, so this video is not medical advice. It's purely for educational purposes, so you don't have to spend hours digging through all the scientific literature because I've literally done it for you. With that being said, this is episode 3 of our Strong Girl series, all about empowering you with the tools and knowledge you need to tackle your health and fitness as the strong girl you are. And these episodes take a lot of work and research, so it would mean so much if you subscribe and also hit the notification bell so you don't miss a future video. Okay, first of all, what even is primary amenorrhea? Here's the simplified medical definition. Primary amenorrhea is where you've had no period by age 15 if you do have other signs of puberty, or no period by age 13 if there are no signs of puberty at all. It's fairly rare. Research suggests that only around 0.1% of women experience it, but that doesn't mean it's not important because it's your body's way of telling you that something in your reproductive or hormonal system isn't quite right and needs some attention, and I really think it's not talked about enough. In the first episode of the series, we covered how your cycle works and then went a bit deeper into all of the hormones involved in episode 2, so if you need to refresh, make sure you go back and watch those. But there are loads of different possibilities why you might not have had your first period yet, because there's so many different areas of your body that are involved, from your brain to your ovaries, and they all have to work together to make your cycle happen. So it's often better to think about amenorrhea as a diagnosis with multiple different causes rather than one single disease. So knowing that, we can group the causes of primary amenorrhea into 4 main buckets. First is obstruction, because you could be making hormones, even ovulating, but if you've got a blockage in your vagina or uterus, then there's nowhere for the blood to go. This can include conditions like the ones I'll pop on screen, but doctors usually use a pelvic exam, MRI, or ultrasound to try and figure out whether you've got a blockage or not. Second is ovarian causes, like primary ovarian insufficiency. And this is where the ovaries stop functioning properly before age 40, but even before puberty. Causes include Turner syndrome, autoimmune diseases, or if you've previously had chemotherapy. This can be a little bit harder to diagnose, but lab tests often show high FSH, low estradiol, and low AMH levels. A 2017 clinical research article found that around 68% of POI cases remained idiopathic, meaning they don't know what caused it, but early diagnosis is key. Third is pituitary or central causes. So this is all to do with your brain. Your pituitary gland controls other hormones that can stop your cycle from happening. So doctors might do some blood tests or even an MRI scan of your brain to see if there's anything a bit off there. Fourth is functional hypothalamic amenorrhea, or FHA, which I'm going to call it because otherwise I'm going to keep tripping over that. This is actually one of the most common and most overlooked causes and can be the reason behind both primary and secondary amenorrhea, which we covered in the last episode. FHA happens when your brain turns off pulses of a hormone called GnRH in response to stress, whether that's mental, physical, or nutritional. And since those pulses are turned off, that ultimately goes on to disrupt the rest of your cycle and leads to low estrogen. And things that can trigger this include underfueling, overexercising, emotional stress, or chronic illness. And when we're looking a bit closer at hormone levels, we usually see low to normal FSH and LH with low estradiol. Okay, so I know while we're going through those 4 categories, you're probably going through them trying to tick off the one you think you have, because honestly, I would be doing the exact same. But even if you think you're 99% sure you have FHA or one of the others, please, please, please just go and get checked out by your doctor first so you can properly rule out all of the other causes. Right, let's zoom in on something that's pretty essential, especially if you're particularly active or involved in lots of different sports. It's called the female athlete triad. I know that sounds a little bit complicated, but don't worry, we're going to break it down. The triad includes 3 interrelated components: low energy availability with or without an eating disorder, menstrual dysfunction including amenorrhea, and low bone mineral density. Let's start with energy availability. So this glass represents the number of calories that you consumed in one day, and this glass represents the number of calories that you burned. The more food you eat, the more energy your body's going to have available to move, move around, work out, or even just basic functions like breathing. And throughout those processes, you're going to be burning calories, aka you're using up some of the energy that you had available from the food you've eaten. So say you'd eaten 2,000 calories, but you're pretty active and you ended up burning 3,000 calories. Even if you're not losing weight, you're now in a state of low energy availability because you burned more calories than you consumed. And if this continues over time, your body perceives it as a threat to your survival, so shuts down your cycle to conserve more energy. Because right now, you're trying to pour from an empty cup. I need to figure out how to get this back in here. The 2014 Female Athlete Triad Coalition Consensus Statement, thank you, explains that low energy availability is the underlying cause that disrupts reproductive and skeletal health. It's not just about eating disorders either. Even well-meaning athletes who don't eat enough to cover their training needs can develop the triad. From short-term experiments in the paper, they found that when you get below a certain threshold of 30 calories per kilogram of fat-free mass per day, those negative changes in reproductive function, metabolism, and bone health start to occur, even if you're at a healthy body weight. The long-term risks of untreated FHA and the triad go beyond missed periods too. Estrogen is critical for building bone mass, especially in your teenage years. The bone deficits that you can experience with amenorrhea can be permanent, and amenorrheic athletes are 2 to 4 times more likely to experience stress fractures. I was actually listening to a podcast episode earlier today, and the woman sharing her story grew up as a runner and didn't get her first period until her 20s. And the thing that made her start taking recovery seriously was that she got to a point where even if she was just doing normal movements or everyday tasks, her shins would fracture, and she broke her foot when she went swimming. And I was just listening to this thinking, oh my goodness, amenorrhea is a lot more serious than most people realize. No, I'm not saying if you've got amenorrhea, you're suddenly going to start falling apart, but a lot of women complain that having a period is just inconvenient, but it truly is a blessing and a really important marker of female health. This isn't to scare you or anything like that, but if you've been brushing off the fact that you don't have a period, it's going to be a lot better if you start doing something about it now rather than pushing it off and waiting for other symptoms to start popping up. Because once you get regular cycles, it's going to help your performance as an athlete as well. Emotionally, women with FHA may experience higher rates of anxiety and depression, which is another reason why the 2014 statement emphasizes early diagnosis. To help with that initial diagnosis, the paper provides some screening questions that are often given to athletes as part of the pre-participation physical evaluation. And they also go on to outline that screening and early intervention in adolescent females for components of the triad are especially important, as 90% of peak bone mass is attained by age 18. So it provides a window of opportunity for optimizing bone health. So going back to the female athlete triad, the 3 components of the triad recover at different rates with the right treatment. The fastest to recover is energy availability, which typically takes a few days or weeks of increased energy intake and or decreased energy expenditure. Menstrual cycle recovery typically happens after months of increased energy intake, while recovery of bone mineral density might not be seen until years after the other 2 elements of the triad are fully recovered. There's a helpful figure in the paper that outlines how the diagnosis process tends to work. It's also important to note that genetic factors may play a role in when you get your period. So for example, if your mum or your sisters got their period a bit later on, then it's quite likely that you're going to be the same. So it could just be a matter of waiting it out, but then again, there's absolutely no harm in getting checked over just in case. Now for the good news. Many causes of primary amenorrhea are treatable. So with FHA and the female athlete triad in mind, let's go over what you can do to get your cycle going. First of all, a lot of you girlies commented on my last video asking how you could increase estrogen and what are the best foods you should be eating. So I did some digging, and I know this is going to be a bit frustrating, but although food on its own won't dramatically boost estrogen, it can help with hormonal balance. So all these little Pinterest graphics saying eat these foods to increase estrogen, take them with a bit of a pinch of salt, figuratively, not literally. So one of the best things you can do is make sure you're getting a wide variety of different foods in your diet. For some vitamins and minerals that can be helpful to make sure you include in your diet are vitamin B6 from things like poultry, oats, bananas and chickpeas, vitamin D from things like salmon, eggs, fortified dairy and sunlight, magnesium from dark leafy greens, nuts and whole grains, zinc from things like beef, shellfish and legumes, and omega-3s from things like salmon, walnuts and flaxseed. But here's where we get into the things that will really help increase your estrogen and get your cycle going. First, increase energy intake. We chatted a bit about this in the episode on secondary amenorrhea, and in the book No Period Now What by Nicola Rinaldi, she recommends eating at least 2,500 calories or more every single day. Your body needs more energy than you think to feel safe enough to ovulate. And if you're particularly active, then your calories are gonna be on a bit of the higher end to keep you out of that state of low energy availability. Even if you don't feel hungry or aren't trying to lose weight, you've been under eating, intentionally or not. And it's so important to be consistently eating enough to support your body. No foods are restricted here, so make sure you're getting a good balance of carbs, fats, and proteins. Her second recommendation is to stop all high intensity exercise temporarily. This is often the hardest part for athletes, dancers, or just anyone who loves being naturally active. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you to cut out all exercise completely, because there's so many benefits for moving your body both physically and mentally. So cutting out absolutely everything and just sitting still all day is unrealistic. I know from my own perspective that would drive me completely insane. However, I would strongly suggest that you reduce the amount of exercise that you're doing, and Rinaldi recommends to stop doing intense cardio like running while you're in this healing phase. This doesn't mean you can't run for the rest of your life at all. It's just in this season now, while you're healing, while you're getting your period back, we want to make it as easy as possible, because if you're trying to like keep up with the running, you're just gonna have to eat more, and sometimes the stress that you accumulate from running won't allow your body to feel safe enough to start your period. So I know it's gonna be hard, but it's really helpful to remind yourself that this is only for a season. You just need to take things one step at a time. Gentle movements like walking, yoga, and stretching are fine, but the key thing that we want to do is remove stress from the system. Number 3 is gain and maintain weight if needed. This one won't be applicable to everyone, but a lot of women with FHA find they're in a body that's too lean for their own physiology. There's no universal number, but weight gain is often needed for ovulation to happen. It's about the weight your body feels safe at, not what looks or feels normal. Number 4 is reduce stress, mental and physical. Your hypothalamus responds not just to food and exercise, but stress in all forms. So if you're particularly stressed about work or school or anything else that's going on, that can hold you back from getting your period. So prioritize getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Prioritize self-care. Some people find talking to someone or getting therapy can be really helpful, or even just journaling about what you're feeling. Personally, whenever I'm stressed out, I find that prayer helps a lot, but you could choose a whole combination of all of those things. Step 5 is be patient. Recovery is gonna take time. When you're doing all the things, many people start to see signs of hormonal recovery within 1 to 3 months, but it can take much longer, and it will vary massively between women as well. Now, I want you to hear me when I say this, girl, but if you're watching because you're worried about not getting your period, it is not your fault. It doesn't make you any less of a woman, and it doesn't mean you can't be healthy. Primary amenorrhea is a medical condition and not a sign that you failed at life. With the right evaluation and support, you can start taking those steps for your health. So if you have any questions at all, or other topics that you want me to cover in the rest of this series, just drop them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. So thank you so much for watching. If this video helped you, subscribe, give it a like so that other people can find it, and I'll put all the references to the studies that I mentioned in the caption description, so that if you want to dive a bit deeper, then you can go for it, go crazy. And if you haven't watched the other videos in this series, make sure to check out this playlist next, because all the videos kind of build on each other to give you a more complete insight on the big picture of female health. Love you so much, and I'll see you there.